Jessica Thompson vanished on a quiet Florida evening, but what police discovered in the following days would shock the entire town. Her terrifying kidnapping story was a complete lie, and the truth behind her disappearance was far more twisted than anyone could imagine. The evening started quietly in the small Florida town, the kind of place where everyone knew each other and the streets were usually empty after sunset. Families were finishing dinner, teenagers were hanging out with friends, and the hum of daily life carried on like any other night. But that calm was shattered when news spread that a local teen had disappeared. She was just 17, a familiar face in the community, and her sudden absence sent shockwaves through the town. Her car had been found abandoned near a gas station a few miles from her home. The vehicle's doors were wide open, and items were strewn across the seats and floor. Her phone had been left inside, along with a small backpack containing personal belongings. Officers quickly noticed what appeared to be bloodstains on the driver's seat, creating an immediate sense of alarm. The scene looked chaotic, as though a violent struggle had occurred, and it wasn't long before police treated the case as a potential kidnapping. Within minutes, law enforcement established a perimeter around the area. Patrol cars blocked nearby roads, and investigators combed the surroundings for any evidence of a struggle or witnesses who might have seen something unusual. The local community was thrown into a state of fear. Parents began checking on their children, neighbors kept an eye out for suspicious activity, and rumors started spreading about who could be responsible. Some speculated that a stranger had targeted the teen, while others feared it might be someone she knew. As darkness fell, the urgency of the search intensified. Police called in K-9 units to track scents and followed any trail that might lead them to the missing girl. Helicopters were dispatched to scan the area from above, their lights cutting through the night sky. The town's social media channels lit up with posts and photos as worried friends and residents shared information in hopes of locating her quickly. Every moment felt critical, and the community's anxiety grew with every passing hour. Detectives interviewed her family and friends, seeking any hint of a plan or motive that might explain the disappearance. They were thorough, combing through recent messages, social media activity, and school records. Nothing immediately suggested why she would vanish on her own, and no one had seen or heard anything suspicious in the hours leading up to her disappearance. Each unanswered question heightened the sense of dread. Meanwhile, the public's attention only intensified. News crews arrived, broadcasting updates and interviews about the missing teen, painting a picture of a young girl in imminent danger. People from neighboring towns were drawn into the search, offering assistance and scouring nearby wooded areas, parks, and abandoned buildings. Flyers were posted everywhere, and volunteers organized themselves into groups, determined to find her. The sense of urgency was palpable. Every lead mattered, every sighting was reported, and the town held its collective breath. The disappearance of this teen was more than a local story. It became a haunting mystery that gripped the community, leaving families and friends desperate for answers. Fear, hope, and uncertainty mingled in the night air as the first hours of the search became a race against time. No one could have predicted that what appeared to be a terrifying kidnapping would soon unravel into a shocking revelation that would shake the town to its core. The search for the missing teen intensified as the night stretched on, and the quiet Florida town transformed into a hub of frantic activity. Police set up checkpoints and canvassed neighborhoods, going door to door, asking residents if they had seen anything unusual. Volunteers armed with flashlights combed fields, wooded areas, and drainage ditches, determined not to leave a single stone unturned. The hum of helicopters overhead added a tense soundtrack to the search, their spotlights cutting through the darkness in jagged beams. Every shadow seemed suspicious, and every rustle of leaves could signal a lead. Detectives worked tirelessly, piecing together timelines and retracing the teen's last known movements. Surveillance cameras from nearby businesses were reviewed frame by frame, but at first they revealed little beyond glimpses of her car parked at the gas station. Witnesses reported seeing fleeting figures in the vicinity, but none could confirm a struggle or provide any clear information. The lack of concrete evidence made the investigation feel like chasing ghosts. Officers juggled multiple possibilities: a random abduction, a targeted attack, or something even more sinister. The unknown factor was the most terrifying. News of the disappearance spread quickly, drawing attention from surrounding towns and beyond. Social media exploded with posts sharing her photo, urging anyone with information to come forward. Locals formed search parties, scanning abandoned buildings, bridges, and underpasses. Cars drove slowly down residential streets, their occupants calling her name, hoping for a response that never came. The community's anxiety mounted, fueled by both fear and determination. Every lead, no matter how small, was treated with urgency, because in cases like this, even a few minutes could make a difference. Police also examined her personal life, hoping to uncover a motive or hint that could explain her disappearance. Friends, classmates, and family members were interviewed extensively. Detectives looked into her social media interactions, text messages, and recent activities. Nothing suggested that she planned to leave on her own, and there were no signs of trouble with peers or anyone she knew. The mystery deepened with every question that went unanswered, leaving authorities increasingly frustrated and the public more anxious. As the search wore on, the town's collective tension reached a boiling point. Local businesses posted missing person notices, radio stations interrupted programming with urgent alerts, and nearby schools kept students indoors, fearful of a predator on the loose. Sleep became secondary as parents and neighbors joined in the effort, driven by a mix of concern and the growing sense that something terrible had happened. Despite the exhaustive efforts, the teen remained missing. Each lead seemed to fade just as quickly as it appeared, and the uncertainty gnawed at both the authorities and the community. The case took on a life of its own, drawing the attention of national media, who reported on the high stakes of the search and the possibility of a violent abduction. The tension was suffocating, and the fear that the teen could be in immediate danger lingered like a shadow over the town. With every hour that passed, hope and despair intertwined, leaving everyone desperate for answers and unaware that the truth would soon turn everything they believed upside down. After days of searching with no sign of the missing teen, the investigation began to take an unexpected turn. Detectives reviewing hours of surveillance footage noticed something strange. The teen's movements at the gas station didn't match the frantic, panicked story that had been reported. She appeared calm, walking deliberately past the pumps and leaving her car in a way that didn't suggest a struggle had occurred. It was as if she had staged the scene herself. Officers began to wonder if the situation was more complicated than a simple kidnapping. Forensic teams examined the car more closely. The so-called blood on the driver's seat was collected and sent for testing. When the results came back, the shock rippled through the investigation team. The substance wasn't blood at all, it was ketchup. Every smudge, every smear, meant to signal a violent attack, was fake. What had been treated as evidence of a serious crime turned out to be a fabrication. Detectives realized that someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to make the disappearance look real. The revelation shifted the focus of the case from a potential abduction to a possibility that the teen had orchestrated the entire event. Detectives began digging deeper into the teen's life, searching for a motive. Interviews with friends, family members, and classmates painted a picture of a young girl struggling with stress and pressures that felt overwhelming. While there were no signs of danger from external sources, there were hints of dissatisfaction and a desire to escape from daily challenges. Investigators pieced together social media posts and conversations that suggested the teen had planned something drastic. It became clear that the narrative of a violent kidnapping might have been a way to divert attention from her personal struggles. As the investigation shifted, authorities re-examined every detail of the case. The timeline, the abandoned car, and the scattered belongings all started to make sense under a new lens. The meticulous placement of the backpack, the phone left behind, and even the ketchup smeared on the seat were calculated to create fear and urgency. Police traced movements in nearby neighborhoods and discovered evidence that pointed to the teen having been nearby the whole time, moving quietly from one location to another to avoid detection. Each new piece of information made the mystery more puzzling, yet simultaneously revealed a disturbing level of planning. The town, meanwhile, remained unaware of the shift in the investigation. Friends and neighbors continued to hope she was found, still fearing for her life. News outlets reported ongoing search efforts, sharing updates that now seemed misaligned with the emerging reality. For the investigators, the realization that the case might be a false alarm brought mixed emotions: relief that no violent abduction had occurred, but also frustration and disbelief at the level of deception involved. The search had consumed countless hours of manpower and resources, all based on a story that was carefully fabricated. With these revelations, detectives began to narrow in on where the teen might be and what had motivated her actions. The stage was set for the next phase of the investigation, one that would uncover her location and force her to confront the consequences of staging such an elaborate and alarming scenario. The case was no longer about saving a life from danger, but about understanding why someone would manufacture a violent crime and the ripple effects that deception had created throughout the community. Hours after the revelation that the disappearance might have been fabricated, detectives finally pinpointed the teen's location. Surveillance footage and tips from the community had converged, leading officers to a small apartment in a nearby city. The building itself appeared ordinary, tucked between a row of shops and apartment complexes. Nothing about it suggested that someone at the center of a town-wide search was hiding inside. Police approached cautiously, aware that the teen was a minor but prepared for any possibility. Inside the apartment, the teen was found safe and unharmed. She sat quietly in a living room that looked lived in but unremarkable, her personal belongings scattered around as if she had settled in for an extended stay. There was no sign of panic or fear on her face, only an odd calmness that contrasted sharply with the chaos her disappearance had caused. Investigators took a moment to process what they were seeing. Everything they had feared about her safety had been unfounded. The danger they had imagined never existed, and the town-wide search had been built on a complete fabrication. As officers gathered evidence, they began to piece together the extent of the deception. Her car had been carefully abandoned and staged to look like a crime scene. Every smudge of blood, every item left behind, had been part of a plan meant to mislead investigators. She had chosen her hiding spot deliberately, a location within reach yet far enough from home to avoid immediate detection. The realization that she had been orchestrating the entire disappearance created a mix of relief and disbelief among the officers. They had prepared for the worst, and instead discovered a level of premeditated planning that was both shocking and unsettling. The teen had left behind clues that, if carefully examined, hinted at her intentions. Receipts, social media activity, and messages to friends all painted a picture of someone who wanted attention, perhaps to escape the pressures of school, family, or social expectations. She had staged the scene not out of malice toward anyone else, but out of a desire to control the narrative of her life, to force the community and authorities to focus solely on her. Every detail was calculated, from the timing of her departure to the placement of her belongings, designed to provoke a maximum response from those searching for her. Authorities now faced the task of documenting the evidence and preparing the case for potential charges. While she was physically unharmed, the legal implications of her actions were serious. Filing a false report, misleading law enforcement, and causing public alarm were all violations that could carry consequences, especially given the resources mobilized in response to her disappearance. Police and detectives were meticulous in recording every aspect of the case, understanding that the next steps would involve courts, attorneys, and public scrutiny. The community, still unaware of the full truth, remained on edge. What had started as a terrifying story of a potential violent crime was now turning into a tale of deception, manipulation, and a teen's desperate attempt to escape reality. The discovery of her location marked a turning point in the investigation, shifting the focus from rescue to accountability. The stage was set for the final chapter, where the repercussions of her actions would unfold and the town would come to terms with the shocking reality of a disappearance that never truly happened. With the teen safely located, the investigation shifted from search and rescue to legal consequences. Authorities carefully documented the elaborate deception, gathering evidence of every step she had taken to fabricate her disappearance. Her actions had mobilized an entire town, tying up law enforcement resources, volunteer efforts, and media attention. Police knew the case would be scrutinized closely, as the charges would not only hold her accountable, but also serve as a warning about the serious implications of filing false reports. The teen faced potential charges for filing a false police report, obstructing law enforcement, and causing public alarm. Each offense carried weight, and the combination of them underscored how a staged crime could ripple far beyond the individual responsible. Investigators explained to prosecutors how she had meticulously planned the scene, from leaving her car with supposed bloodstains to creating a convincing narrative on social media that suggested a violent abduction. The evidence was clear, and the case against her was strong. Meanwhile, the community began to process the revelation. Relief mixed with frustration and disbelief. Parents who had feared for their children's safety, neighbors who had joined search parties, and local businesses that had posted missing person notices all struggled to reconcile the truth. Emotions ran high, relief that the teen was unharmed, anger at the time and energy wasted, and a lingering sense of betrayal that the fear they had endured was based entirely on deception. Conversations among friends and family centered not just on her actions, but on how easily perception and panic could be manipulated. Psychologists and community leaders stepped in to address the broader impact of the incident. They emphasized that while the teen's actions were misguided, the case highlighted underlying issues that teens face, such as stress, anxiety, and the desire for attention in an increasingly connected world. Experts discussed the pressures of social media, school, and personal expectations, noting that some individuals may go to extreme lengths to feel noticed or in control. The community learned that while accountability was necessary, understanding and guidance were equally important to prevent similar incidents. As legal proceedings loomed, the teen faced not only the consequences of her actions, but also the challenge of rebuilding trust. Her family struggled with their own feelings of betrayal and embarrassment, while she confronted the reality of how her decisions had impacted everyone around her. The story, once seen as a terrifying mystery, became a cautionary tale about the real-life consequences of deception and the weight of responsibility, even for a minor. In the aftermath, the town slowly returned to normal, but the memory of the disappearance lingered. Emergency services reviewed protocols for handling missing person cases, while schools and local organizations discussed strategies for identifying and supporting teens in crisis. The incident remained a stark reminder that actions, even staged ones, can have profound effects on a community. What had begun as a shocking disappearance ended with lessons about accountability, empathy, and the fragile balance between fear and trust.